coming up in this week's episode. And so there's this place with shame that it drives absolutely everything that we do to avoid feeling it, including our parenting style. Welcome to The Liberation Effect with me, your host, Helen Villas. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Liberation Effect. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Stephen, who emailed me saying that as an autistic ADHD with CPTSD, narcissistic parents, and a religious trauma experience, he has been struggling since the birth of his child, simply because the world that he had carefully curated had suddenly seemed to fall apart when his son was born. Steve, I'm just going to hand over to you and say, what is it that you want to gain from our time together today?
I think I am feeling stuck.
Okay.
I think that's what it basically comes down to. I think I need something that kind of helps me build a bit of momentum again.
Okay.
And I had this world that was built very carefully to kind of manage my trauma, and it worked fantastically.
Yeah.
And to the point where I didn't really think about it. I didn't have many triggers in my life. I very carefully curated the people around me, my day-to-day, my work, everything. And there's something about, as many listeners, and I'm sure you know as well, there's something about having a very young child, baby, toddler now. My child's about 2.5 now. So like, still a true ball of chaos. You don't get to manage your world carefully and curate it and control it. And I know for me, my issues are very linked to this kind of hyper responsibility. I'm not okay if they're not okay.
Right.
And of course, that's a very hard thing to parse out when a baby's just screaming, is going, what the hell do you do to make this child? So there's all these things that have kind of come up for me that I'm like, oh, I thought I'd managed this, or I'd dealt with it, I should say. And I go, oh no, I managed it. I had kind of structures around it. And now I'm going, okay, I really need to work on this thing, because I can't structure around a toddler. I need to be able to cope with the chaos that he brings and the needs that he brings that I feel I can't resolve. And then I get really anxious and get triggered and shut down, and it activates all my neurodivergent components as well. And I start shutting down and just completely switching off. It kind of interplays. And the worst part is when I have my life very carefully curated, it would be a great time to do that work.
Yes. I mean, isn't that the thing?
I did do a lot of work, but right now I've go, oh, wow, there's some really big work still.
Okay.
Here.
And you...
and it's really hard to do right now.
Well, I mean, right, when there's all the chaos of a toddler and unpredictability and instability even with that. And you said you need momentum to do some work. And what work do you think it is that you need to do, and what momentum is it that you need in order to do that? Or momentum for what, I suppose, is actually my question.
Yeah. I think I'm talking in circles around it. I've been in therapy for years in different contexts for different things, but even for this, I've been working on this to some degree even before he came along. I've been starting to look at this and putting a finger on it and going, oh, this is what it is. And I've done that 100 different ways all around it. Okay. And I can name the problem, I can label the problem, I can see it when it's arising, I can see it when it's there. And that is helpful. That does minimize, it does kind of help me kind of cut things off at the pass at times. But there's something about, I'm not really engaging with stuff. I'm not really feeling it. You know, that introspection, that actual awareness of my emotions. I'm really bad at that. I don't have much of that.
Okay.
And that's trauma. Maybe some of that might be some neurodivergent components as well. Worked so hard on that. So hard. And constantly people go, how are you doing? And I'm like really carefully going, okay, give me a second. I really want to check in. I'm trying. And it's interesting to try and do that. But a lot of time I just go, no idea. Maybe hungry, maybe anxious. I have actually no idea which the difference is between those two actually right now. And so it's really hard for me to then
connect,
really engage with stuff, sit with the emotions and process. How do I feel about the fact that actually my childhood wasn't good and I didn't have emotional stability and safety? Don't know. I don't really know how to sit and process
So
that.
it's being able to identify the emotions is the problem. Is that right?
Yeah. I think identify, because I can intellectually, so this is the thing, right? So I can then go, oh, how would you feel? Well, yeah, like I feel upset, I'm grieving on some level. I feel betrayed. I feel let down. I feel scared. But I'm like, I don't actually feel that right now. I'm just labeling things that I probably would feel. And there's this gap. It's dissociative. It's who knows what that is. But it's like, how do I close that gap where I actually sit in that and navigate it and process it. So I'm actually like, oh yeah, I'm feeling this. I'm letting it emerge and be and kind of go. There's an
Okay.
element of it, like once it actually, and I don't know, maybe that's not what I need to do, but it feels like the intellectual side of it. I have
You've got,
intellectualized this,
right.
and that's my defense in a lot of ways, right?
And
I
it's
mean,
something so
it is
common
to
for
sit up here
autistic
and
people, right? Because very good at solving problems and very good at pattern recognition, and it's a very effective defense mechanism when your emotions, particularly if you're growing up undiagnosed autistic and ADHD, if your emotions are constantly being shamed and rejected, abandoned, you're going to learn that they are just horribly threatening and you mustn't go anywhere near them, because if you do, people abandon you, right? So
yeah,
what happens if, well, first, before I go on to the questioning, I'm going to ask you, am I right then that today, to leave this session, you would like to be able to connect to the emotion and know how to process it a little bit better than you can now? Is that fair?
yeah,
Great.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Or if you can like kind of between the two as we get to a place going, oh, that's not what's needed. Maybe it actually is this. Maybe
Okay.
I've kind of got it wrong. So like, I guess if we get to the end and go, actually, that's not the issue. Maybe the issue is actually that you engage with this or do that. Or by all means, I'm kind of quite open to it. I
Okay.
don't want to be closed off to go, that's the thing I need to do this, because maybe I don't, but it feels like that's what I need.
Okay,
That's
so
my
I'm going to
best
ask you
hunch, if
then
that
about
makes sense.
self-trust, because what leads you to let
This is it.
me have power over what you need?
Yeah, and this is a big one for me. Self-trust
Okay,
is an issue.
self-trust.
Yeah.
Okay. And that makes total sense, right? Because if you don't know what you feel, how can you trust yourself to react accordingly in the appropriate way for your safety in the moment? Makes total sense that you're then like, well, someone else might know better than me about what I need, but actually I'm not going to even go into that space. I don't think I'm going to say, no, you've brought to me this, and let's work with it as though you're right, and that's what you need. How about that? How does that feel?
Yeah.
It's a good
Sounds
question.
great. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Any feeling in your body? Any reaction to that question in your body or that statement?
No, but it resonates true with me that's
Okay.
like a big issue for me. I have no problem trusting myself in decisions at work, in working with other people's emotions even. But as soon as it comes to what's going on for me, I'm very quick to go, I just don't really know. Do I feel that? Am I really feeling like that?
Okay.
I'll frequently go to my wife and go, I feel off. I don't really know what's going on. Can you help me parse this out? And that's a really helpful and beautiful thing to have.
Yeah.
But I probably lean on things like that a lot, like to the degree where I just go, I just don't really trust that that's what's going on for me. Like,
Okay.
feels true, but I think I wasn't held as a child. So like in the sense of emotions were never named for me. We didn't talk about emotions.
Right.
I was brought up in a very high control religion. My parents themselves weren't particularly high control within religious components. They were a bit more open and loose. My mom wasn't, my dad wasn't, but there's a high control religion thing. And for that, there's a lot of minimizing and bypassing of emotions.
Okay.
Because what you feel doesn't matter. What matters is that, it's all going to work out at the end, or that God has a plan, or, so there's this thing of like, it doesn't matter if it's hard right now, God has a plan. It doesn't matter if you feel sad, because joy is a fruit of the spirit. Sadness isn't. So we need to be joyful because we're Christians.
So God has all the power over your
pushing around and pass.
So God has all the power over
I don't know if it's God has power. God doesn't care on some level. Like he does care, but also doesn't. There's this two-sided message. It's very contradictory.
That's really interesting. He cares, but he doesn't care. When does he care?
He knows the hairs on your head. He cares so much about you as an individual. He knew you before you were born. These kind of like sayings that talk about just how much he cares about you so much. He sent Jesus to die for you. But also, in the grand scheme of things, you're to lay down your life for people around you. And that was a big theme in my family. We grew up in extreme poverty because we were focused on everyone around us and helping the community, helping these people that were worse off than us, who frequently weren't worse off than us. We were much worse off in many ways. So there was a lot of kind of my needs took up space that we did not have in the family. So put your needs right down. So it wasn't just even emotions. It was
everything.
What does it look like for me to need something? Well, my parents are completely swamped and overwhelmed. And so don't need something because it's only going to make things harder.
Okay.
And on some level, I've internalized, if you take up space, there's going to be less love, there's going to be less acceptance, there's going to be some level of pushing away or distance because people have enough on their plate. So I don't worked hard over the last few years to ask for help and things like that. But yes, kind of padding this out a little bit more.
Yeah, no, it's
I'm conscious
important.
I'm kind of also just talking.
No,
I'll just keep doing
you're
that.
fine.
Otherwise.
Don't worry. We spoke just before we started, didn't we? About I'm very used to working with autistic or ADHD people, being ADHD myself. I know the monologuing thing, and I have no difficulty saying I'm pause you there if I need to. So please feel free to talk. But even that's interesting because there's something about managing me and my feelings in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's the fear then if you were to talk too much and I wasn't to stop you?
Multiple.
Okay.
So I think there's a side of like, I'm trying to preempt what you need.
Yeah.
And so I'm going, oh, well, Helen needs a great podcast. Helen needs for me to do this or that or this or whatever. And that's there. But I think much bigger than that at the forefront is this thing of going, this is an opportunity I have here. I want to get something out of this. And I don't trust myself that the thought is I'm just going to go and waffle on about all sorts of stuff. Helen's going to desperately try and butt in a couple places and then we'll finish up and I'll be like, fuck, like that was a waste, wasn't it? Or, and that is, again, the way I see myself or the way I see my own ability to kind of navigate this.
Because there's something about you taking up too much space there, right? And and then about not trusting me to be able to kind of speak up if I need to say something. And again, I wonder if that's an experience for you where people haven't spoken up and then either have held it against you in the future rather, and then punished you for it, or is that something you've experienced too?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is growing up autistic, ADHD, but not being diagnosed until I was way into my 30s. There's an element of I'm quite a dominating, I'm also very charismatic. I'm quite good with people. And so like I can kind of take up space, but often I realize afterwards, I'm like, oh, I really took up a lot of space. So not many other people who spoke in that interaction or, whatever. And then I'm jumping into like, oh no, like what's going on? And I think it's the fear of like, oh gosh, am I somehow going to suffer the consequence of that? And I think it's like growing up in school and you talk too much or something like that. There is a consequence there, but often you don't realize you're doing anything wrong, or it wasn't even explained. This is what you did wrong.
Right.
Or,
so then
why didn't you tell me how to do this differently?
Right.
I don't know.
So then what would be the consequence now of you taking up too much space in any space, not just here, but in any kind of situation?
It's such a difficult question to answer because the answer I would give you is not the answer I need to find. The answer is it's probably no consequence, right? Intellectually, I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like it makes no difference at all. And I know the other person probably doesn't care, and I know I don't care. So it's like tapping into that thing under there. Going,
so the
there's
top
a hint somewhere in here, isn't there?
Yeah.
And there's like a kid that's 8 or 9 or 4 or 15 or whatever that's going, no, but if this happens, they'll
be a fear.
Not be friends with me, or they'll tell me off. And I don't know what that. And I think a lot of this comes down to the fact that I try and remember my childhood.
Right.
And it's just a big blank canvas, which I know, oof, there's a red flag for you that tells you a lot.
Yes. Well, okay, can I...
Well, facts of my childhood.
Right.
From
people telling,
things,
Okay.
Going back to those memories here and there.
Do you remember at primary school your uniform?
No, I guess I was in 4 primary schools, we moved around a fair bit as a kid. But no, I don't have a very visual memory as well, so I struggle to like conjure a picture. But like, no, I'm just imagining it's a generic.
Okay. Do you remember your favourite teacher? Or a favourite teacher?
I know of a favourite teacher, and it's really hard to parse out. Is this because my mom told stories about things he did for me or stuff, or do I really remember what it was like in his classroom? And I remember he set up a chess club for all the kids at lunch one day a week because I was into chess. No one else was into chess. And like, he was like, we're going to do this. And my mom tells that story, but I do kind of probably vaguely recall quite a nurturing kind of figure, which was very rare for me. We didn't have a nurturing figure. My dad was quite authoritarian, strict, quite loud, quite scary, with all the nice figure on the outside that everyone looks at and goes, wow, what a great guy. And my mom was very present physically, but emotionally just didn't have that stuff to give.
So then having a nurturing figure.
That felt big, probably. Again, I say probably, right? Because I'm like, am I trusting myself? But I think the thing is, we don't have a memory, right? It does question, should I probably question some of these things that I'm saying, because they came from my mom's story, or, like, and so I'm like, well, do I trust? There's an element of like, I look at how they did, and they did the best they could, and all those lovely minimizing, excusing how they did the work, because both came from really decent backgrounds. But they didn't do well, and as best they didn't go to therapy. They didn't, fill in the blank, and they still put us secondary to a lot of other things. So I sit there and go, okay, if my memory is coming from you, how worked is it by your own needs to remember this being, I'm a good parent, or whatever it is, and so, and I think that's the problem is, again, with the distrusting of myself, I'm trying to lean in and trust myself more. I'm trying to sit with my emotion and go, okay, I feel that, like that probably is what I'm doing, and like, let me just at least accept that and see how it feels, and not question it. But there's also things of, as soon as I start trying to pull things and parse things out, I'm going, probably has good reason to not trust some of this stuff,
right?
Because it is just an intellectual exercise based on someone else's memory half
what's
the time.
the benefit of not trusting it?
I don't know. It's a good question. Very good question.
Thanks.
I guess I feel so stuck, and I feel like I've been going round and round in circles on this for so long that it feels, do you remember the Satanic Panic and how they got people to remember things that weren't real? And that's how the whole 80s huge movement, people were going to jail and stuff over like things that didn't happen. And I guess I'm like conscious of like, the human brain is a fickle mother. Like, it'll trick you to believe what's helpful. And that's great if it is helpful. But what if it's not? And it just thinks it's helpful? Because again, my brain is not on my side. It's wired for safety. And a lot of what it thinks is safe is not helpful for me anymore. It's not keeping me safe. It's actually a wedge between me and my son, because it feels safe to be away from him, or because he's going to trigger me. So there's elements there of going, my brain isn't wired for truth and my best. It's wired to feel safe.
So this comes back to trust
and
again.
And that isn't always.
Trust feels like it's the overarching theme. I can't trust my mum's version. I can't trust my own version. I can't trust my feeling. I can't trust my thoughts. I can't trust my brain. There's just trust all the way through. And so then I want to ask you, what's dangerous about trusting something?
Yeah. The first thing that comes to my mind as you're saying that, which is really interesting, we haven't talked about, but growing up in a high control fundamental religion is there's God, right? So people will let you down. Parents will let you down. Everyone ultimately is this fallible person that isn't ultimately trustworthy on some level. They're doing their best, or maybe if they're Christian, they're more trustworthy, but they still could make a mistake. God is this solid, stable thing. And I think there's an element of having left that as well. I see this a lot. I work with people that are coming out of high control religions, so that's something I would help with. And I see it a lot with them where there's this element where this toxic, unhealthy thing actually served a really, really healthy, wonderful role in their brain, that when they excise that, if it was themselves doing that, it'd be just a really healthy side of them. It'd be their compassionate side, it'd be their caring side, it would be the side that trusts itself. But because it was this external thing that got taken out, and I think that's happened to me in some way, where the thing that was trustworthy, the thing that was solid in my life, was also removed. And I walked away from that. But I think it's very hard for me to then go, well, how do I learn to trust myself when I've spent, at that point, 25, 29, 28 years of my life or whatever, not trusting myself, not even trusting the people around me particularly, but just trusting this thing that now, in my mind, I'm an agnostic atheist, that just isn't even there, right? It's not a thing.
Right. So then
you could say, well, that was me anyway. It was me, right? It was a part of me anyway. So maybe
but if you
need to restore that in some way, or I don't know. But
well, hang on, because then if you think about, isn't it interesting? Because you talked about people being fallible, and if you think about religion, and God is perfect, in my experience of religion, it's that God is this perfect being and knows everything that's best for you, doesn't give you anything that you can't handle, that even the shit things are there to try you, to test your faith even. You know, I remember when my father died, my grandmother, who she was Catholic, she was very religious, and she had already lost one son only about 8 years before, after a long illness. And then my dad died, and very suddenly and unexpectedly. And then my grandfather died 5 months after that. And when my uncle died, it was, God has betrayed me. Then my father died and my grandfather died, and suddenly he's sending this to test me. This is his plan for me, to show me, to test my faith. So there was this thing of like, even if bad stuff happens, it's God doing me a favor.
It has to be turns.
Right, this toxic positivity, essentially.
Yeah.
But what I heard, though, through you talking about that, was for me to trust something, it has to be perfect. Or I have learned that I can only trust perfect things. And God was the one. I couldn't trust myself, because if I felt like this is unfair, the responsible God wouldn't do it if it was unfair. God would only do this to you if you could handle it, or he's trying to teach you a lesson, or whatever it might be. But it has to be perfect for me to trust it. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have worked on my black and white kind of perfectionistic kind of like, just, I think, again, possibly part of growing up in a black and white world with fundamentalism, but also part of maybe being autistic. I think autistic people are very vulnerable to kind of high controllers and things like that anyway, but also most likely to kind of then go, wait a minute, this isn't adding up, because they take it so seriously. So, but I think there's a thing of like, yeah, there's that in me that's very black and white, and that has really evolved in so many areas of my life. And yet when it comes to my internal world, it is so black. I'm so critical of myself. I'm so catastrophic in my thinking at times. It's so, like, the way I can go from totally fine to completely shutting down and losing my peripheral vision and just getting completely overwhelmed because my toddler is just crying a lot, and this audible sense of it, but there's also the thing of like going, oh, I just don't know what to do right now, and I can't cope, and I can't trust myself, right? I can't trust that I'm going to be able to be a good dad in this moment, and I'm going to let him down. And even the way I see that, what is a good dad, what is a healthy way to bring up a kid, is so black and white, right? It's not watch as little TV versus loads of TV. It's no, like, it's like do what you have to or whatever, and I'm working on that, and I'm able to do that now. But like, it's like, for me, it's like, well, if you shouldn't watch, don't watch any TV. If I put TV on for 10-minute break, that's a failure. I failed here.
Okay.
You know, that sort of thing. And
so you always have to be perfect.
But internally, oh, of course.
Okay. So tell me what...
Which is better, because good God, I am not.
Okay, but tell me what perfect actually means to you. Define perfection or perfect. How would you know you are being perfect?
So again, this intellectual versus whatever's going on underneath war of like intellectual. I'm like, well, you can, and that's shifting. The goalpost is constantly growing because I'm learning more, and I'm becoming, oh, that didn't work. Oh, how can I do it better? Oh, that. And now my goal gets even harder and harder. The more I learn, the harder the job gets almost. But there's something in me that is like, well, there is, and again, I don't believe, I'm very pluralistic. I don't believe there is a truth. I think, you know, we make our truth and it's subjective, but there's something in me that goes, but there is a kind of an objective thing to hit here. And I don't know what that's built. I guess it's built from me. It is a subjective experience of like, I've read enough papers on how does screen time affect young children under the age of 7 or something. And then I go, okay, right, I've got some level of knowledge here. Now that is going to be the perfect objective. Don't hit this marker. Make sure you're under this time or whatever. And so I think, again, I'm very intellectual with it, but there's something in me that's emotional, that's driving me to go, I need to do this, or I've failed, and I think ultimately it boils down to the thing is with the perfect thing. I think this is like talking around the circle for years. What I feel I've identified it as is it's none of those things. It's that I don't trust I can figure out what you need. And so, if my child is just needing a hug right now, but he's better now because he communicates so much now. He's very verbal, which is great. And obviously people are like, oh, that's not so great sometimes, but it's great for me because crying and me going through 20 things and still crying, and I'm going, but what is it? I don't know. And so it's so difficult.
Okay.
And so there's an element of like, I don't know what you need. How can I do that? So I have to do it perfectly so that there's no needs are missed, because then we won't get that moment where do you know what I mean? There's that thing. So I can do it for my wife where I'm second guessing what she needs rather than letting her live her own life. Right? Because I need her to be okay. But I'm deciding how she's going to be okay and working on that and letting go of that and letting her live her life. And that's easier to do because we can talk about those things. We can engage. We can set boundaries. You can't set a boundary with a 2-year-old. You can, of course. But there's an element there of like, no, of course. But there's these autonomy components. But like, there's also an element of just him understanding and knowing what he needs. Me communicating, how do I communicate that? That's such a difficult process with a young child that I don't know what he needs right now.
Intrigued. Well, here's the thing, because I don't know what he needs right now. How familiar is that to your childhood experience with your parents?
I didn't know what I needed, and they didn't.
No, about their needs. No, what their needs were.
Oh, and I have no idea. I'm thinking, like, so when I'm trying to think, so 4 years younger than me is my brother, and there's a sister in there. He had a virus in his brain. Right. And his immune system attacked it, dealt with it, but it impacted his brain. And so he was in hospital for 6 months. My parents were basically in hospital for 6 months, and we were at school or playgroup or whatever the hell we went to at 4 or 5 years old. And then my sister, probably in nursery or something, she's 2. And when we're not in those places, we were staying with, I think, the church treasurer in the evenings. And then they would pick us up late at night. We've often just fallen asleep already, and they're taking us home to then drop us off at nursery the next day, because they are spending all day, all night. It's the trope of like, going into the sick kids hospital and the kid got cancer, you live there for 6 months. It's kind of like that. And I'm looking at that now, again, intellectualizing, because I have no idea what it was. I don't remember it. But I'm going, must I have felt alone, betrayed, abandoned, but also scared for my brother, seeing my parents scared, seeing my parents worried, not knowing what they need. How can I fix that? Because as a kid, that's how you do it, right? You go, I am responsible on some level. So all of that comes from this sort of stuff. And there's probably stuff before that. My whole upbringing was very chaotic, and lots of hospital for lots of siblings and parents. My mum had a huge hemorrhage when I was 12.
Oh my gosh.
That's very central to a lot of these things. And so there's a lot of things there where I need to get everyone to be okay, because I'm not getting my needs met. And if I could just get that right, maybe my needs will finally be met.
Because also, if there's all these massive events which result in abandonment or the threat of abandonment, then the rug is being pulled out from under your feet constantly. Unexpectedly. Yeah. So you cannot protect yourself against that, and therefore need everyone to be okay for you to be okay, and making it your responsibility to fix every problem so that everyone is okay so you can be okay.
Isn't it?
So I wonder then what it would cost you to trust yourself in what you're perceiving, what you're thinking, what you're feeling. How does that threaten you to trust yourself?
I guess it just feels like we'll just get more of the same, right? Because on some level, that's probably loosely what I was probably doing at those ages. On some level, I was engaging with that.
The minute you relax, everything falls apart.
You can't. My parents can't relax. God forbid. There's certainly no way I should be relaxed then if they can't relax and they're on edge all the time. And I see that and I go, oh my God, how is my kid picking up on, so, which is all this kind of stuff of like, I need to be perfect. So, whatever. But yeah, like, I think there is that thing of, there's something of, the world is so, and God, we had God, right, who does everything, is in charge. Right? He was on our side, and our life was shit, right? I mean,
Right.
in our lives, and our life is chaotic. So it's, how on earth do you navigate that chaos if God's not in charge of it? If my parents can't do it, how on earth can I trust myself to be able to do this?
Right.
To be able to figure out what to do and how to do it and what to feel, what to think. Like if the people that are kind of supposed to be modeling that for me, and then this also meta figure kind of like that is over everything and is supposed to be perfect, they can't kind of like line this thing up right, it seems.
Right.
How on earth do I do that? How can I trust myself to do that?
So then,
surely my parents are perfect, do that perfectly, right? I mean, again,
well,
as I perceive as a child, we see our parents
of course,
as some sort of
it's like
figure,
these
right?
amazing things. And then if you've got any negative feelings about what's going on, they're dismissed as God's plan, and therefore you're criticizing God, essentially. You
just don't see the reason, but it's
and therefore
definitely going to be a good thing.
You can't trust yourself because if you were to stay in those feelings, that means you're abandoning God.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So also, the thing that I also heard was, if I trust myself, that means I think I'm perfect, I'm godlike, and therefore arrogant.
Yeah.
And all the terrible characteristics of, what's the 7 sins? Pride? There's a... There's a pride or a delusional aspect, even if you trust yourself. Because who do you think you are? If you trust yourself more than you trust God, that makes you actually a terrible, terrible human being. Is that right?
Yeah, this kind of false humility thing. Which, I can see that potentially in there as well.
Does that hit anywhere in your body? Did you feel anything in your body when I said it? Not emotion, just a sensation, any sensation in your body.
That specifically, no. I think I've actually worked on that a lot.
Okay.
The element of breaking apart this kind of like having a confidence versus being arrogant and recognizing there is a big world of difference in that.
Okay.
I think if you'd asked me, if you'd highlighted gone there 6 years ago, I'd have gone, shit. But actually, I think it's this thing of trust. It is sitting with me. It's sitting. It feels heavy. It feels.
Everything keeps coming back to the trust. That, like everything that we're talking about. So, in terms of experiencing emotion, I'm going to do a little exercise with you that is based on, if we had the feelings wheel, I would be sharing the feelings wheel with you. And I would be asking you to go around it and look at every single word and notice what it brings up in your body. I'm sure you've done this yourself.
It's the background of my computer.
Right.
Is the feelings wheel. I use it. Roll. I'm like,
that's amazing.
There's so many feelings. I'm like, I struggle when you start with the 6 in the middle, and I'm like, I don't even know how to identify those. Never cut. Work your way out. But
well, let's start in the middle, because I call those the primary colours of feelings. Like those are the ones where we start every emotion starts. So let's start with happy. If you think about happy, how do you feel that in your body, and how do you experience it? How would you demonstrate it?
When I'm really happy, I'm going to work.
Yeah, go to the extreme, and then we'll dial it down. Yeah.
So when I'm really happy, I'm focusing on what I do, and then I'll come back into how I feel, because it's hard for me to engage that initially. But I notice myself singing.
Okay.
If I really get excited, I'll literally, like, very autistic,
stim
but like I'll kind of stim in very positive ways for me. Yeah, I will get. It's like a burst of energy, but almost on the other end of the bell curve of, like, maybe if I'm anxious, my feet will be tapping and like, like my legs be shaking, or, that's also this kind of huge nervous energy. It's almost like that, but feels great.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess anxious and excitement are kind of
the same. Yeah.
Same sort of
fear.
So I think there's that element of like, yeah. And I think for me, I feel lighter.
Okay.
But I think what scares me a little bit is the thing that I feel the most is I just don't feel unsafe. And I think this is what hits
Okay.
me over and over and over again, is that if I sit with my body, the big things that I'm going, yeah, this really is what it boils down to is, am I safe or am I in danger? The happy bit is like 8 steps further along from safe, and I get to safe if I'm really lucky occasionally, it feels.
Okay.
Happy feels like, oh man, I've got to be safe for a wee while before I can even get there sometimes.
Okay.
Right now in the season, I was fine doing that for years, decade, but
Right.
since my child's come along, it just feels like I'm rarely getting to the point where I'm able to go, oh, I feel safe to be happy right now. I literally feel on edge like so much of the time.
So mm,
So it feels quite foreign, I guess, is what I'm saying. It feels like quite difficult to engage because I'm like, gosh, when do I feel? I guess I feel happy throughout the day all the time, probably. But how much am I noticing it, engaging with it? Because it's not even safe to even go there. Almost, I got to be on edge, and
okay.
I don't know if I leave fight or flight. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, what does that look like to be happy when you're still dysregulated? It's possible, yes, but it kind of feels like this kind of corrupted version of happiness where I'm like happy, but I'm also like anything could go wrong at any minute.
But
on edge.
Yeah. So there's this thing of, it feels like there's a thing of, to get to happy, it's got to be safe first, then happy. But then that's immediately threatening to feel safe, or rather to feel happy. Because if I feel safe and therefore happy, that means I'm not looking out for the threats. Which then comes again back to, how do you trust yourself to manage the threats when they happen?
Yeah.
And what are the threats? What are the things that would make you unsafe?
This is what it boils down to for me. We're like 40 minutes in.
It's
here
fine.
We go. It's therapy, right? Last 10 minutes, 50 minutes to whatever. Oh, here it is. People, and not strangers, not acquaintances. This is why I don't get dysregulated when I'm about a stranger, or
right,
typically maybe in certain contexts. But like, it's the people closest to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. So I said to my wife the other day, I'm like, there's this horrible dynamic where I feel safe when I'm in my office working, or just hiding, like just going back to, because there's an element where, and I don't feel safe sometimes. Sometimes I just feel the least danger I'll get. It's the best state I'll get to. But there's a thing of like, my kid is running around outside and I can still hear him, and he might need me. I know he doesn't intellectually. I know he doesn't need me. So I'm there, fine. But there's this thing of like, I might need, my wife might need me. My, very small kind of curated people around me, most of the people I probably created around me don't need me, right? There's an element, or if they do need me, they know to balance that with or they respect my boundaries. And there's these dynamics there that I've carefully curated the right people in my life for me.
Okay.
Maybe healthy, maybe unhealthy.
I mean, I don't think that's unhealthy.
But healthy for me as in I survived.
Yeah.
Well, but like, I think that's the thing with the toddler again, is like, they're not going to go, does dad have the capacity for this right now?
Sure.
They're going to go, help, right? And I'm like, and I want to respond to that, right? I want to have a secure attachment or whatever and all that. And I'm aware of the percentages there are not that high, right? Which is indicative of my parents. But yeah, I don't know. So there's this thing of like, I'm not safe until nobody is around me. Nobody might need me. Before we had our child, I would spend hours and hours, like 6, 7, 8 hours a day on my own, just being regulated.
Okay, I'm going to butt in.
And the rest of the time, I'm probably dysregulated.
Okay, so I'm going to butt in and notice what you said to me just then. That around strangers, acquaintances, I can feel safe. Around people who I love, care about, who might need me, who I would want to help, I feel unsafe. Can you see what the difference is?
Yeah.
The loss cost is a lot higher, and so therefore the risk to safety is a lot higher.
Yeah.
Right. And so then when it comes to people asking you for something, how do you feel about saying no to them? What happens in your brain when you think about saying no? So your toddler comes up and says, Daddy, help. And you say, and you're like up to your arms in, I don't know, something that you cannot leave, and you have to say no to him. How do you feel in that moment?
It's difficult. It really is difficult. And I think I've worked on that a lot with the people in my life close to me, and I've drawn more boundaries. So there's an element of like working on asking them for help is dangerous, and I've worked a lot on that. And then there's the element of going, hey, I'm not going to kill myself to make sure every person in my life is okay and has all their boxes. Even if they come to me with needs, sometimes I just can't do it, and that's okay. And sometimes I don't want to do it. Yeah. That's okay. And that's slowly been an issue. And actually, when you said, are you noticing something? I thought that's what you were going to mention. So I was like, people. And then I mentioned all these people close to me. But then I'm like, but actually, I'm kind of okay with them because they know and respect my boundaries. And then I went, but my son, right? And so there's actually this other element of like, when I say other people, like that is true broadly, but I've worked so much on that to curate the right kind of people or whatever. But it's this element of my son has revealed in me this element of like, well, actually, if I had close people to me that weren't so healthy at this, didn't respect my boundaries, that would be the bigger issue as well. But I've not got that as much. And my child shows up and he is that. He suddenly is, whoa.
So what
oh my gosh. But so I think, I don't know how to say no. I do. And I've worked really hard with him as well. I'm working really hard because it's not healthy for him to always say yes, right? So he needs to understand boundaries, and autonomy works multiple ways. And so I work hard on it, and I'm good at it. After a few no's, he kind of is like, okay, daddy, and like sits and plays with his toys and then comes back 5 minutes later and says, you ready now? And I'm like, yeah, great. And we've got timers, which work great. I've realized that works great for me as well.
Yeah.
It's transitioned for me with him.
Yeah.
Transitioning 40 times in like
it's too much.
20 minutes with the toddler. Oh my God. I can transition once every 3 hours normally. So this is like the hardest shift I've ever done is like, what do you mean I have to go from this to this to this to this?
Over and over again.
But I think the thing is, as soon as he's not going to settle, he's not going to take no for an answer. And I'm going to have to now deal with that on some level, which is really difficult. And that feels really core. But you're then going to throw crying into the mix. You're going to throw loud noises and whatever it might be. I'm fortunate he's not at the stage or has skipped some sort of stage of breaking things, things like that, or like beating the crap out of me. And like, because all that is sensory wise, just
so much.
The whole thing. So I'm already getting dysregulated saying no, because I'm then going, oh gosh, like I'm letting down someone that loves me. It's going to have some major impact. He's going to, probably can't leave me yet, but maybe when he grows up, he's going to resent me and not want to, whatever it might be that I'm worried about. That I wouldn't be able to put my finger on particularly, but maybe something like that, I'm guessing. But it's on top of that, you suddenly have all of this sensory stuff. I just feel like I think that's what creates this stuckness, is I feel like the odds are stacked. You know what I mean? It feels like, and yet, I'm just like, how am I supposed to work through this while I'm just starting to slowly get more and more dysregulated? Saying no just feels like that requires such strength to kind of hold that no.
But do you know what's so interesting is you say that you don't have feelings.
I'm getting weaker by the bit.
But you're saying that you don't have feelings, but you really clearly do. Like, you're clearly connecting with the emotion. If you're feeling dysregulated, that is an emotional state. So it's not that you can't. And I wonder if there's a belief system that you're curating as well, even to protect yourself. And then I really wonder about how, just for a second, you experienced disappointment and still experience it now. If someone disappoints you, how does it make you feel about yourself and about them? And we can use think, but feel or think.
Yeah. No, I want to stay with feel if I can.
Sure.
I think I remember as a kid just constantly feeling let down, constantly felt we just got the worst end of the stick. Like, life was disappointment. We were, the poor kids that shopped in the charity shop donated their clothes to our stuff. That's fine. I mean,
but that's horrid when you're a kid.
As a kid, when everyone's wearing Nike trackies and things like that, and you're going, oh my gosh, I have secondhand clothes from the supermarket, and you're like, and everyone's now going to bully you because of it. And it's like, you just go, oh, what? Like, I hate my parents. I hate this God that's supposed to be looking out for us. I hate my circumstance. It came out in frustration, irritation. And I think that I see that in myself when I'm getting overwhelmed, especially my kid that really don't like it. And I do kind of just remove myself from it. I'm like, hey, I just need some space. You're doing great. You're okay. I'll be back in 2 minutes. And I'm just like, 2 minutes is not enough, but something. But I see it myself. I'm going, I am getting irritable. I am getting angry. I am getting frustrated. And not even on some level at that person, the kids or whoever it might be. But I think it's myself, really, right? I mean, this is probably...
Well, it's a trigger. You're being triggered.
To deal with it. I'm not able to cope. Why can I not cope? Why can I not do that? And so that's maybe quite unhealthy, where I'm now internalizing the thing that's disappointed me that maybe was on someone else, but it's now my thing.
Have you worked through any of the kind of, and this is really brutal, but this is something that I think everyone in your situation, including myself, has experienced at some point around their own children, that when you are providing a home for them that you never experienced, we can feel both resentment towards the child for maybe not appreciating it as much as we might want them to. Grief, which actually really is our grief when we're feeling that resentment. Yeah. It's where we're not acknowledging our grief of what we didn't get as a child. Because I hear you there, right? The contradiction between God's plan and this is all perfect and everything's there for a reason, to this child you're just describing as also really interesting. I can't remember anything, but gave me a very clear, very descriptive experience of being the third-hand clothed child from the supermarket and the charity shop, and then the charity shop person buying it right? So, in fact, when we were looking at even fourth or fifth hand, and being bullied and knowing and everything being just a fucking disappointment, and you're not allowed to complain about it, because if you do, you're criticizing God. It means you're ungrateful for what you've got. But actually, you've got fuck all, because you're being sent into the lion's den, i.e. school, with like vulnerabilities exposed that are going to be weaponized against you, because kids do that. Certainly insecure kids need other children to feel less than so they can feel more than. And that gets taken out on you. And then you're not allowed to say, I don't like wearing fourth-hand clothes that have clearly seen better days, that have already initially come from a supermarket, and told I should be grateful for it. So here I'm hearing this huge amount of experience as a kid, and then utter squishing of those feelings.
Yeah.
And then your son comes into the world and reveals just how bad it is.
Feelings.
Well, I know, has the audacity.
It's totally different experience.
To have a different experience and not to be perfectly happy with it.
Yeah.
And then what part of you is internalizing your own parents' parenting? Like your blueprint is saying, well, you should be grateful all the time for everything that you lived. Of everything you've got. And then knowing intellectually that that's not fair. But also there's a massive trigger, because his disappointment triggers what you would have been told
to have that disappointment.
Right, but you were shamed for having it.
Yeah.
So then when he's disappointed, your shame gets activated. And I wonder how connected to your own shame you are. Have you managed to pull that out at all? If you're scared of rejection, of saying no, have no idea how to trust people, you're not alone, and you don't have to heal alone either. That's what the Hub is for. It's a membership community designed for survivors just like you. Every month, we dive into powerful courses, we hold live calls, and connect in a supportive, understanding space so you can break free from the past and build healthy, fulfilling relationships. Maybe it's time to stop surviving and instead start thriving. Visit jointhehub.ac today using the code POD20 to get £20 off your first month's membership. I can't wait to see you there. Take care. Bye.
It's there, yeah, in maybe different contexts. I think like in this, I recognize I've got really angry at my parents over the last kind of 8 years, 6 years. I'm starting to recognize, okay, they were kind of almost deified, especially my mom, not my dad so much, but like they're perfect, they're great, and I'm going to be like them or whatever, all those kind of like tropes and stuff. But And so I've allowed myself to get angry. I've allowed myself to grieve that I didn't get to be emotionally held with a kid. I didn't get that. But I think there's a whole nother level when you're actually doing it. And is that I alluded to earlier of like whatever percentage it is you need to get to be as securely attached. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, the bar is on the ground.
On
30%.
the ground. I did a video, it went viral. Like, and it's
how did my parents get under it? You know what I mean? It's like, it's incredible. Like, actually terrifying how many people aren't,
right.
you know, but
3 out of times
you just go, oh, I'm so angry.
Right.
So angry that like you just didn't manage to just meet me 30% of the time.
Right.
It wasn't that hard, surely. And I recognize, well, maybe it was, but that's not neither here nor there. Figure it out.
It doesn't matter, right? Like,
so
but see how you make excuses.
Maybe engaging with that. For me, I'm going to do it. I'm going to hit that way over 30%, right? I'm already way over. I'd probably chill out a little bit, but the idea of resentment, the idea of it triggering shame. I've thought about the resentment stuff before, and yeah, there probably is that. And I can hear my inner monologue of like, for fuck's sake, what I've got to complain about. I'm really sorry that I'm sitting with you and making space for your emotion and doing whatever you want really right now in this moment. You're not even, you know, when he's one thing where he's like, I'm cooking a meal and he's like, oh, Daddy, come over me. I'm like, can't. And he gets upset. I'm like, I get it. Like that feels really upsetting and it's very big for you right now because you don't have a big pool of disappointment to pull from. That is really disappointing thing or wherever. I get it. You don't know how to hold these emotions. They're big. Get that. But when you're complaining because, I don't know, you said, can you play with the sticker toy? But then I played with it the wrong way. And now you're going to blow up as well. Such a disproportional response, which again, it's not disproportional. It's just all he knows. Like an intellectualist is, but I can see myself go, fuck you, man. Come on. Are you kidding me? I'm here on the floor playing. You know how many times my parents were sitting on the floor with me?
Right.
You know, like, so
and there, see that resentment
that
is
inner thing. I don't finish that sentence to get to that point, but there is a thing of like, come on now, I'm saying here is, I hear the narcissistic trope of like, we put a house over your head, we put clothes on your back. Like, what more could we have possibly done than the bare minimum that like an animal would do for Charles? But so I'm saying the same thing on a different level of kind of going, well, look, I'm doing all this stuff, and that's maybe commendable and great, but it's rooted. What's the root of that? Is like that should be pretty astonishing, really, based on what I have as a frame of reference here.
Let me ask you this.
I would have loved that.
So if when you were small, your parent had got on the floor and did do it the wrong way and you had complained about it, what would have happened to you? Even if it's imagination hypotheses, what would have happened? What would they have done?
It's hard to imagine my dad would have ever got on the floor. If he had, he'd probably get frustrated, angry, and bail. And that scares me. My jump to getting irritated and frustration, I'm like, this feels like my dad. I can't remember my dad like that much, but I feel it and I go, this feels like my dad. Okay, so there's that.
Okay.
I think my mom, she's the more dyslexic. She was probably autistic. My dad was probably ADHD, but she was quite autistic. They both had major trauma, like wow trauma from their upbringings. But I think she would have got dyslexic. She would have she would have probably managed to watch by going, you need to go and sit in your room. And that was seen as a really healthy way to parent because she wasn't beating the shit out of us, but also like, my God, you're just abandoning your child, right? You're just casting them off for having an emotion. You have an emotion, now you must leave me, right?
Right.
You don't get to be around here.
So emotion meant abandonment.
Yes. Yeah, probably.
So can you see then when your child is in that emotional space that your inner child might be going, don't do that. He'll stop playing with us. Stop it. Don't do that. We're going to get in trouble. And not only that, we're going to feel like we're a horrible, horrible human being because we're bad for wanting them to be nice to us.
Intellectually, that sounds really true. I'm struggling to
that's okay.
Feel it, to engage with it. And I don't know if that means it maybe isn't, but more likely maybe that I'm just struggling to engage, to feel that. I don't know.
Let's go back to shame then.
Yeah.
Let's go and...
Shame feels big because I don't know. I'd love for you to parse that out a little bit as far as what the question was, because I feel like that feels like it could be huge. I know I've got tons of shame in my life.
Okay.
Left, right, and center. You find life, everything comes down to shame, right? But like, my God, and high control religion and all of this stuff.
Shame is everything. So shame, and just for you and everyone listening, people do not understand how much shame drives us. as a way to avoid feeling it. So we will do all sorts of things. I won't do that because of what people will think of me. I don't want people to know this about me because they will think I'm a terrible human being. If people really saw what I want, feel, need, prefer, like, desire, they will shame me for it. But shame belongs to other people, right? We feel a tiny bit of it naturally because it's about survival, that when we were in kind of days when we relied on a community to survive in, old Stone Age times, we needed shame to fit in, but it always still belonged to other people. So if your tribe particularly said that yellow was the bad colour and you should never wear it, and you walked in wearing yellow, you would have been shunned from the group. So it's not that yellow is bad, it's that the group perceive yellow as bad, right? And therefore you don't wear it and you judge people for wearing it. So in your family, emotions were shameful because they were inconvenient to your parents. There was their own trauma dictating how they responded to emotion, which is to stop it because it threatened them themselves. So now your son's experiencing emotion. See how the kind of chain continues of when your son's experiencing emotion, you're being triggered by it because emotion wasn't allowed when you were a child, and therefore it was shame too. So again, you've got religion shaming you for having anything other than utter gratitude for the life that you've been given, no matter what it's bringing you. Then you've got parents abandoning you when you've got an emotion that they disagree with or is inconvenient or highlights their own flaws and failures as parents/humans, because we are all human and we all fail in both arenas, and it's not a bad thing. It's just that people are looking to be perfect all the time so they don't get abandoned themselves. And your internalization of his emotion potentially being a criticism of you not being good enough as a parent, rather than him being an individual experiencing the world in his lens, not with the kind of experience that you've had, and it not being a criticism of you. It's just an expression of his need. Sometimes it might be a criticism of you, but also it might not be a fair criticism of you. And so there's this place with shame that it drives absolutely everything that we do to avoid feeling it, including our parenting style. And that means that when he is experiencing an emotion, not only are you having the autistic experience of sensory overwhelm and, just the kind of, I don't know what to do with this because it's not a thing I can just logic out and solve, particularly. Sometimes you can, but not always. But on top of that, you've got shame of emotion. And here is your child literally representing your shame. What does that feel like? How does that sit or hit?
I think so. I think the shame of not being good enough, not doing better, not doing right by my kid, right? At the end of the day, having a kid is a very selfish choice, right? They didn't have a say in this at all. I bring him into this world and then I do a shit job. Man, that's a pretty fucking poor move, right? Like, if I'm bringing this kid out against his will, might as well do the very best I can on some level. And again, the best I can, not perfect, not whatever. And I probably need more accommodations than many or whatever. But I think that feels so deep and true to me because I just feel the shit. When he gets emotional, I'm just like, I just feel shit at this. So
he's literally representing.
And I don't know how to do this.
Okay. So his emotion represents you not being good enough. So you are taking his emotion personally and as a rejection.
Yeah. And I could tell you I do the same for my wife. And so again, we have a lot healthier and we've worked that out and parsed that out. But if my wife is particularly upset and especially if I'm not sure what's going on and she's shutting down a bit rather than coming out with it, she has her own journey. And so I can recognize it's not she's got stuff going on. I'll give her a bit of space. I'll say, when you're ready to talk, let's talk about it. And I'll go on with my day because she's not told me what's going on. I don't know what's going on. She might be pissed off with someone else, but I'm pretty sure, almost immediately, I'm like, there's something wrong here. I've done something wrong. I fucked up. I'm a terrible husband. Or, and I'm worked on that a bunch. And I don't know, I'm maybe a bit better at it, but it still hits hard quite quickly.
Okay, so
most of the
what
time.
shame does
And so
that
it's the same
trigger?
sort of mechanism. Again, like, I'm just not doing a good job as a husband. I'm
A bad partner, a bad person?
yeah. I'm just not good at this. I'm not a good person. Yeah, if you keep boiling down, it comes down to a very personal attack. You are not good.
Okay.
You are not
That is
acceptable, worthy. You deserve fill in the blank, a whole bunch of things, rejection, to be whatever.
And you don't.
Not in this relationship. She should be with someone else because it would be better off. So if I didn't think it'd be really detrimental to my child and my partner, like, I'm like, yeah, like, God, I should just walk away, get a small flat, and just do my thing and chicken out with someone, because it feels, and I'm conscious, I've got to look around and I'm like, no, men especially are not doing work. So probably not, but it feels like 9 times out of 10, you could just turn around and point at someone and she'd probably end up with a partner that's going to be able to manage life better. It feels on some level very much like I am crap at this. I'm really, really crap at this. And it feels like most people probably aren't. And yet, intellectually, again, I go, yeah, okay, I've seen what most of our friends' partners are like. I've seen what the average person is doing. Right? I mean, we've talked about how many people are not securely attached and how much is that really changing these days. Maybe I'm kind of hopeful about generational growth, but I'm also not at all, because Christ, you look at all sorts of different things. Anyways, so it's that thing that worrying me of going, I can intellectually go, I'm doing a great job. I'm really doing it. I'm throwing myself at this. I'm really trying my best. And even thinking about how might I be overreacting and detrimentally going too far. And you're like, I'm going, no, let's try and balance this. I'm really putting effort in all that things. And yet it doesn't matter, because he has one moment or something goes wrong and I'm like, I should just crap it. I can't do it. It's such a big hit. And I guess that's the thing of like, what do I do with that? How do I can point at it, I can sense it, I can even notice when it hits. Although in the moment, I'm probably going to start getting dysregulated and I'm not really doing much with it. But how do I shift that shame?
Wow.
It's so difficult.
What would it cost you to believe that you were good enough? What would be the threat be of believing that?
Do you know what? You say that, and the first thing I think of is, I'd be like my parents. I'd be like my partner's parents. I'd be like all these people, right? How many narcissistic parents go, well, I am good enough. In fact, I'm great at this. You know, like, and you go, right, yeah, that's not a belief that remotely equates to, therefore you are good enough. For me, it might. If I can intellectually go, God, that would change my life. And actually I've become even better at this, because I actually wouldn't be carrying all this baggage, and there wouldn't be unhelpful mechanism in a way that shame might really help some narcissists, right? Good God, if they could feel it in a helpful way that motivated them.
I mean, they do feel it, but not.
Yeah,
they just comes out in the wrong way, but yeah.
But I guess my point is like, yeah, like it can be helpful, the shame at times, this biological thing on some level, but it's just low, it's mushroom clouded. And I'm like, so I can see intellectually it would be fantastic, but there's something in me that goes, no, because I've been around a lot of people that think they're doing okay, they're doing good enough, they're doing whatever. And you know what? Most of them harmed, abused, took advantage of people, or at best were just shit.
Right. So there it is.
Hardcore eventually, but they just weren't that good.
Right.
So does it feel...
Go on.
If I'm not hypervigilant to doing the best job, do I end up just becoming a bit there? And my kid ends up having a crap parent. My partner does have a crap. If you're not intentional, how easy is it to really do this well?
Well, there's a big difference between being intentional and then, sort of making it all everybody's reaction about you being a bad person. That's very different. It's also quite difficult for them because it silences them for fear of triggering you.
Yeah.
So then, I think this might be the root of this, in that I have to be all these things. I have to believe all these things. I have to avoid my emotion so that I am the best I can be, the perfect parent, the perfect partner, the perfect friend, every aspect, every arena that I'm operating in, I have to be the best in of myself. Because if I'm not actively doing that, then I'm like them. Right? So the threat or the cost of you not believing or trusting yourself to be good enough is that you will automatically be like them. That you're, because somewhere inside you is an inherently bad person.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I mean, it feels like that's probably still somewhere in there. That's still to be excised for the 1,000th time. Like how many times I've tried to work on that one, but you just go, oh, Jesus, there's another layer of that onion that's still onion, right? Yeah, very possible.
If you think about your inner child.
It feels like if I get completely dysregulated, I'm like, oh, the person that is here is not someone you'd want as a dad right now, right? He's getting frustrated, irritated, he's overwhelmed, he's just running, he's like, and so it feels like that thing of once I take past all these defenses, or you get through those defenses, the person is just a dysregulated mess. They're scared, they're angry, they're irritable, they're pushing. They're not going to meet your needs. They're going to do the opposite, right? They're going to push you away so they can go and find their needs. And that element of like this person under all those defenses, so that I don't like that person. I do feel ashamed of who that person is.
Okay, but
who is that person that's in there, a bit of a mess, like a bit of a normal person, probably?
Well, let's answer that. Who is it?
And ADHD and all of that, but
who is it in there?
Someone that just wants to go and hide.
Okay.
And just be alone and be safe and just, right? It's a little kid. I think it's a kid that I laugh, but like when I was a kid, you know the cabin beds that you have the drawers and the cupboards on either side and then the beds above? I pull those drawers. I come home from school. I actually vividly do remember this. I come into my own room. I had my own room at this stage of my life. I'm like 12. I've got my own room. First time in my life, I think. Pulled the drawers out and I go inside and I pull the drawers back over and I'd be inside in the gap behind, staying there for like 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. Did anyone notice?
And I'm like, who is the kid? Doesn't even feel safe in his room. He's got his own room and he's still going, I need to retreat further. And that is the person that you find, if you get through all my defenses, is the person that's going to go, I just want to go and hide in the cabinet. I want to go hide under a weighted blanket. I want to go and hide because I feel scared. I feel unequipped. I feel overwhelmed. I feel fill in the blank.
And how do you feel about him?
Compassion. I feel really sorry for the kid. Like, what a horrible, awful experience that at 12 years old, you're not running around playing football. You're terrified. You're scared.
Scared all the time.
And what a terrifying experience of like, your kid is getting so worked up over something that's silly or whatever, or something that's really big. Maybe he did fall and hurt. I don't get dysregulated if I can see a very direct attachment.
Yeah. Because you can see it's justified.
His favorite toy, broke it, cried for 3 hours, and I held him and I didn't get dysregulated.
Because you can see
3 hours. He was so upset. I'm like, I can see him name that emotion. I can see where it's attached. But generally speaking, that I'm now basically the scared 12-year-olds, 8-year-olds, whatever age I am, and I'm now in charge of a toddler.
Right.
Which, thankfully, in my situation, I never was responsible for my siblings. Probably a rare case in a lot of these kind of narcissistic upbringings. But I am well aware I wasn't able, and I wouldn't be able, and I don't feel able when you get to the core of under all that stuff that I'm working so hard to do and to be, is someone that is not able to hold a toddler. I can't hold myself. You know what I mean? I'm really struggling here.
Okay, but you can hold him when you can see it.
Yeah.
Because it's justified in those. And in your brain is going, he's allowed these emotions because there's a real physical, we can see something, so we don't need to be triggered because it's not an ambivalent, vague, subjective experience that he's having an emotional response to that you would not have been allowed the emotional response to. I'm really intrigued. You said something, the story about climbing into the drawers. I wonder if those that are listening might share whether or not they did that too, if they had the ability to. I certainly did. I had cupboards even. I had drawers under the bed that I made like a little bed in that I would squirrel away under because it was safe. And it's testament to the environment that we were in, that we needed that at all, right? Mm-hmm. It's really interesting that you feel compassion towards him, that you can see how sad it is, and you can recognise for him how awful that would have been to grow up in that. And I wonder if you can feel that for your dysregulated version of you at this age, the compassion.
That's harder. That's what I'm working on. I'm doing a lot of, I don't know if you're probably very familiar with Kristen Neff, Paul Gilbert, all these folks
No.
that focus on compassion. So Chris Neff, so Paul Gilbert came up with compassion focused therapy, which
Oh,
I'm
okay.
really interested by and I love. Or he's
Oh,
part
I
of
think
that.
I've done training
And
with him.
Kristen Neff has you probably have if you've been in that world, you probably know. But Kristen Neff has a workbook called developing your compassionate self. It's just podcasts on compassion. So I've really been trying to do that for myself now.
Right.
And I think before a lot of that, I don't think I would have looked at that 12-year-old and saw him with compassion and felt sorry for him a lot. I probably would have saw it as weakness and gone, God,
right.
pick up yourself, go for it. Come on, man. You kind of still squandered this. In some level you could have pushed through, on some level you could have still made a great childhood apart from all your circumstances. But that has been pushed to the side and gone, come on, for God's sake, you had no upbringing here. You've got no space to be yourself, to develop autonomy, to understand. But of course you couldn't do any different at 12. But it's very difficult for me to not do that now when I'm sitting here as in my 40s going, come on. So I'm repeating that same thing. But it's very hard to give myself compassion and
as this age and not judge yourself for it, which then makes me wonder how you feel about other people being dysregulated. Do you judge them?
If I disliked them or something, then I wanted to know my face, or if I was already on the cusp of getting dysregulated, I probably would go, oh my God. But I think again, it's that thing. I see my child fall on his tractor, he gets upset, he's becoming dysregulated, right? He's completely losing it. I can hold him, I can help him regulate, I can rock him back and forth, we can process or whatever. Same deal. There's an element of okay, you're dysregulated because I can put it together on some level. Maybe it's easier.
When you can see a mathematical...
completely dysregulated and I would put it together, maybe that might be a lot harder. Maybe.
Because there's this thing of, in dysregulation, maybe this is the place to start, is what you feel when you're dysregulated. What are the emotions that you have most accessible when you are dysregulated?
Yeah.
Can you name them?
You got the wheels? Overwhelmed, anxious, frustrated, irritated, a lot of those. But I think there is this undergirding of shame.
Okay.
There's a self-loathing. I really jumped to kind of beating myself up for getting here, for not recognizing, I probably should have stepped away. Or there's that element of really beating myself up for just not coping. Because again, 9 times out of 10 as well. And this is what hits again. I can look at the 12-year and go, of course that happened for you there. You're 12 and you didn't have any backdrop before. Hard for me to go, look, of course you're 40 and you didn't have any of this growing up. It's you're 40 now, right? Okay, so how are you dysregulated over a kid crying? How are you getting dysregulated over something so small and simple or that wouldn't have dysregulated me at all?
Okay, but I'm going to interrupt you right now. I'm going to pause you right now. Notice what just happened. Did you see what happened? I asked you about what emotions you feel in the moment of being dysregulated, and then you went into a story about, you started with them, and then you went into this big story of it. So this is the thing, I think, for you to change the way that you're approaching it, is that instead of catching yourself when you want to go into explaining it. So instead of explaining it, you just go, I feel overwhelmed, anxious, irritated, frustrated, and shame. I feel like I'm not good enough. That was all that needed saying. But because you're trying to, it seems like they're so threatening that, and I wonder if there's something about it threatening how I perceive you or anybody perceives you, not necessarily me, but how someone perceives you. And whether or not there's I need to manage how you see me so that you don't abandon me. And I need you to know that I can understand this and I can explain it, and therefore you don't need to abandon me. I've got it under control. It's just that. But instead, I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to do a different question to try and test it. But I wonder if the next time I ask you about what you feel, that you could just use feeling words and then stop, not try and explain it. And notice the moment where you want to transition into explaining, and if there is any kind of pull, tug, thought, panic, fear, anything that happens in that moment. Okay.
I can tell you panic and fear right now. I
Go
know
on.
it immediately.
Go.
And it's not like, there probably is elements of like, oh, I need people to whatever, but it's not safe for me to have a feeling.
Okay.
I will not be held. If I have a feeling, no one's going to hold me.
Okay.
So how do I hold? And in my first thought, you're saying, oh, you're mentioning self-loathing, shame, scared, what? And then I think I intellectualize because I go, well, people say, well, sit the feeling. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, process the feeling. How do you process it with an intellectual? Like, I don't know what it is to just stay here, because never has that happened in my life.
Okay.
I've never just stayed with the feeling, because how do you do that? And no one's ever sat down with me and gone, let's stay here. I'm doing it with my kid. As my parents have no fucking clue what I'm doing by myself with it. But like, the simple fact is, I go, if I end up sitting with this feeling for a long time, no one's going to be there for what's next. And I don't know what's next, because I will intellectualize myself out of that feeling as quick as possible. I'll try and figure it out or whatever. So how do I stay there?
Okay.
What does that look like? I don't know what to do there.
Let's kind of look at that a minute. There's one part of this that we haven't discussed yet, which is really important, that autism and ADHD carry emotional impermanence with it. And that is, as does trauma. So that's a really important thing to bring into this, because even in the not feeling things, you're shaming yourself. Even in the not having it, there's shame. And when you think about emotion, what we have to allow is the idea that if you've got all these different neurodivergences going on and neuro experiences, holding an emotional state is going to be harder, even when they're happiness or, and I say with very inverted commas, good feelings, because A, they are threatening, but B, it's just something that's hard to stay very present with. It's what makes autistic ADHD people very anxious in relationship, because the idea that when their partner is away from them, that they don't know whether they still have feelings for the partner or if the partner still has feelings for them. And it can get really difficult, and it can look really difficult and needy and clingy, whereas actually it's just a reassurance thing. And then on top of that, you've got the autism and ADHD noticing pattern recognition. And if behavior changes, that's a different pattern. And then that starts a spiral when there's trauma as well around abandonment, which there always is in autism and trauma, regardless of whether they had the healthiest upbringing or not, because of the level of rejection. 20,000 times more will a child at, I think it was 9 years old, have been rejected if they are ADHD or autistic than a child who is neurotypical. So we are talking about trauma being present regardless of your family home scenario. But in your situation, if I say to you, how do you feel about your son's disappointment? What are the first words that come into your brain?
I'm trying to create a moment where he's disappointed because it feels so abstract. Interestingly, the first words which I'm trying to catch myself and not do
Don't explain it.
It's okay, buddy. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. And it's I'm already minimizing, bypassing.
Okay, look.
Telling him,
no, I'm going to interrupt.
You're fine.
You're doing it now already. You're explaining. So I'm going to go back to how do you feel about his disappointment? He's asked you to play with him. You can't do it because you're cooking. You've said no, he cries. How does that make you feel?
Frustrated. Absolutely. The first thought is irritated or frustrated.
Excellent. What is underneath the frustration and irritation? If you were to peel it back and look underneath, what might be there?
It's my emotional vocabulary.
Look on the feelings wheel if you need.
I think the thought that's coming is, here we go again. And I'm trying to think what that feeling is. Like,
that
this
sounds
just
like
inevitability, this
fear.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fear of like, oh, what's next, right? So this is fine. Right now you're getting frustrated a bit. But I'm terrified of where this goes if I can't
contain it. Okay, so you're scared. So frustration and irritation, anger. So when we're talking about frustration, we're talking about anger kind of feelings, aren't we? We're talking about grades. Anger is a mask for pain, so very often, and fear. But even fear is a mask for pain sometimes, or, and trying to avoid pain. So if we're looking at what pain might he touch when he is disappointed in you?
I think I'm scared I'm going to be a loneliness.
Okay.
I don't know how to do it. It's just me.
Okay.
So
next.
What is that? Lonely, like rejection, loneliness?
Loneliness, rejection, abandonment.
Is loneliness an emotion?
Not being good enough, not being able to solve it. Then I want to ask you how old you feel when you're facing his disappointment and that frustration and that anger and that fear. What is the age that you feel? And you can ballpark it under 10, under 20, whatever.
Yeah,
older.
no, I ask this all the time with myself and I really struggle with it. But yeah, young. Like,
young.
Yeah, under 10, under
10.
Like primary school age at best.
Under 5?
Best. Maybe not. Maybe.
Okay, between 5 and 10?
Yeah, somewhere there. Yeah, primary school age, maybe.
6?
I don't know. Yeah.
Like 7?
Yeah, young, really young. 6, 7, maybe, yeah.
6 or 7. Okay, what was happening when you were 6 or 7, home-wise, life-wise?
My brother was really ill. He'd just come out of hospital, but it's like he came out of hospital and like they described him as feral. So like he was biting. My mom had to like kind of isolate him and be with him on her own. So it was just the two of them a lot of the time because like he was just very unwell. My dad isn't safe, so I'm not safe. You just tiptoe around him if he's around.
Ooh, did you hear that? My dad isn't safe. My mum's gone with my brother whose behaviour is extreme and dangerous.
Yes. Yeah.
So extreme dangerous behaviour means mum leaves, people leave. Someone that I view maybe as the safer person. Dad is not safe. I have to tiptoe around him. So I have to oppress everything.
Yeah.
So then your son comes in with his big emotion. Is there a fear that he becomes like your brother and has to be removed, that you wouldn't be able to cope if he escalates?
Don't know. I think there's a shame there that my wife is in that analogy of my mom and my dad. I'm the dad, right? Where he probably should be more tiptoeing because I'm going to get dysregulated and I'm not going to cope, whatever. And then my wife will do better. She knows how to sit and hold him and sit there and help him regulate. And I can do that as well, actually. I do know how to do that. I'm trying not to constantly shit myself. But yeah, I think there's that. So there's a shame in that of like, man, can't have my wife's drama that helps her do this well. So because she's got plenty as well, so we're all juggling it. But I don't know if there's a fear of, because to be honest with you, it sounds so nice.
Right.
He's taken away. I'm like, I can breathe a lot more.
Okay, but then
I've got space.
How guilty would you then feel?
Yeah. Terrible.
Right. And so here's the thing, right? So your need actually in that moment is for someone else to take over. But for someone else to take over, that means you've failed. So you're not allowed to meet your need.
So it's loop.
So it loops around. And so you have to oppress your feeling and your need, which is for him to be taken by someone else. And then that reinforces the idea that your feelings are irrelevant and unimportant and that you get abandoned for having them.
Listeners?
So feelings for you, I think we've identified a couple of really big things. Obviously, that I think we knew this already, that feelings were a huge threat. And I mean really significant. We're not talking sort of go to the next room abandonment. We're talking disappear for 6 months abandonment, and that happening quite a lot from what you've said about big sort of traumatic incidents that were out of control. So I have to control my feelings because if I don't do that, everyone leaves and everyone's too busy and then I get left alone, which means that I'm an inconvenience and therefore my feelings are inconvenient and I should be ashamed of them because I'm adding to burden by having them. Is that a fair summary, do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
So shame So all of this feels like it's about avoiding that shame of being inconvenient, a burden, rejected for having the feelings. And then on top of that, not trusting yourself or other people to be honest, authentic, know what's needed, to tell you what's wrong. Because that thing of your wife particularly having maybe a bad day and feeling all her things and needing to disconnect but feeling crap, and you feeling almost dysregulated by that and like, it must be me, I must have done something wrong, is about not trusting her to be honest with you as much as it is about yourself. Does that feel right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So then it goes to the place of what does it cost you to trust? And that is the not seeing something coming up and pulling the rug from under your feet. So there's part of me that's like, this is sort of almost like you're going to have to rewire your brain in terms of the trust, in terms of like almost CBT of look for the evidence of how many times the rug has been pulled, but also the thing of how you've coped when the rug gets pulled and whether or not you have managed it. And then looking at your son and his emotion, and I won't be able to cope where it goes, but also actually that feels like a projection because that's how you feel about your own emotion. And that if you have the feeling you don't know where it's going to go and you're scared of what might be at the end of the road of your own feeling. And so knowing that and not knowing that rather feels intensely threatening, because what if it leads to a complete collapse? And so then my question is there, what if it does? What if it leads to a complete collapse? What happens?
I think this is where like the cognitive dissonance is so big, because it's probably fine. Like I've had complete collapse before. I had a prior marriage that was a disaster and went so badly and ended. It was the end of my world. I'm just like, this is it. It's the end. And God, within like 6 months, it was probably the best 10 years of my life.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, that was the best thing that ever happened. And so I'm very conscious of like this thing of like, I would rebuild something that's wonderful and great and fantastic. I'd only learn from it and get better. And yet I'm terrified of that, right? So like, it's that thing of like, no, but like, there's something here that is like, but that doesn't matter. What does it mean? What's the meaning under it or something? And that is, you weren't good enough, or you were terrible, or I don't know. There's something there that's bigger than just the reality of like, I always say like, it doesn't matter how much you love a partner. You'd be fine. You would probably have a new partner, or you would your partner, and you go, actually, it's quite nice being single a lot of the time. Actually, there's pros and cons here, but it's something so fundamentally big that if this all falls apart, I'm so attached to not even it staying together, but what it means for it to stay together. I think there's something there. Does that make sense?
Okay. I wonder if there's something about being lovable in amongst all of that as well.
Yeah.
That if I fall apart, I'm no longer lovable.
Yes.
If I allow myself to process this. Also, if I allow myself to process this, does that mean I won't need my partner? And does that mean that blows up too? Like what's the risk of processing it? Ultimately, all of these defense mechanisms are all about risk and gain and benefit. And but instead of trying to feel the feelings, trying to demand something of yourself that you're not ready to do, move it to try moving it to the space of, what does it cost me? What has to die? What beliefs do I have to let go of? What will it make me feel about myself? What will I lose? What will I gain? And what will it change about how I view myself, my life, my partner, my child even, my parents? Will it create such anger I can't contend with it towards my parents? You mentioned being angrier than, in the last 8 years. And what if that anger gets bigger and bigger and bigger? And how do you then contain that? Or what do you lose by having that or allowing it? There's so many ways in which being authentic threatens us. And by authentic, I mean honouring our feelings, our wants, needs, desires, preferences because it creates conflict in our current relationships very often, because people are used to this version of us, and then we start saying, actually, I want to be this version of me. And what can happen, obviously, is, and you know this better than most, that we will lose a lot of relationships because they depended on our silence, our compliance, our servitude. And then we stop being that person and we start having a voice, and it really reveals those relationships. So even in itself, that is threatening. So it's not just that they were threatening as a youth and a young person growing up, it's that they threaten everything about your reality now. So my challenge to you is going to be, and we can revisit this if you want to further down the line, but my challenge to you is going to be, stop trying to feel. Try to understand what it will cost you. Because until you know that, you are going to defend against it over and over and over again, because the risk is so high in so many different ways, both to young you and current you, that I think potentially it's too much. That is the thing that is too much to bear, rather than the feelings themselves.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, sitting with that consequence. Like what's going to be the consequence if you go there?
Yeah.
Would you sit with it? What does that look like? Yeah.
Because
even, yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Even in that, you see, Stephen, is that there is even in the trying to feel the feelings, there's a perfectionism. I have to do this right. I have to process these properly. I have to feel it properly and allow it and get it to the end. And processing feelings is, for me personally, and I think it is different for a lot of people, it's the feeling is there, I allow it to sit, I allow it to either move through me, or I visualize it moving through me to allow it to go. Sometimes though, I squish it down because I haven't always got time to feel the goddamn feelings, and that is reality sometimes. And then I create space, or they're so big I can't tolerate them, so I put a timer on and I'm going to just feel that thing for like 5 minutes or whatever it is, even if it's 10 seconds, I'm going to tolerate it for that much, but I'm not expecting myself to do it perfectly. And that thing of what Winnicott says is that if we meet the child 3 times, 30% of the time, if we attune and attend to the child 30% of the time, they will create a secure attachment. The same is true for ourselves. We don't need to be meeting ourselves 100% of the time. Maybe it needs to be a bit higher than 30% initially, because we're trying to reinforce the idea that we are secure for ourselves, that we can trust ourselves. But it doesn't need to be perfect. And actually, just as the parent who is meeting 100% of their child's needs is actually doing damage, maybe we would be doing the same for ourselves. Because if we're meeting a child's need 100% of the time, they're going to expect that from everyone else, and they won't learn to cope with disappointment. You said it yourself earlier, that if you were to say yes to your son all the time, every time he asks, that's not good for him either. The same can be true for us too. So I'm going to leave that with you, that idea that instead of trying to feel the feelings and trying to do it perfectly, you first focus on what the threat and the cost and the gain will be to not feel them, or to feel them too. And then once you've worked that out and why you're defending them so heavily, maybe you'll be able to access them, but in a more careful, contained way that doesn't threaten so much. How does that feel?
It feels good. It makes perfect sense. Yeah.
It's funny. So, yeah. Okay. So before we finish, was there anything else that you wanted to ask of me or from me?
I can't think of anything. I think that captures a lot, and it gives me a lot to kind of just sit and
allow
and see.
And just see,
Yeah.
And minding those expectations of self, of what you are asking of yourself. Are you asking yourself to sprint before you're even crawling? And maybe that's not fair on you either. And who are you colluding with when you do that?
It's just
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stephen, thank you so much for coming on. As ever, I'm still here. You can still ping me emails. It's not that you get cut off after being on the show. And I really, really appreciate your exploration with me and your openness and willingness to reflect and absorb and challenge yourself. So thank you so much for coming on and doing that. Okay.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Okay, well, thank you again. And thank you everyone for listening. And I guess, as ever, all that remains to be said is take care. Bye.